deeply frustrated today by something that I heard on the radio. Was additionally frustrating because it was coming from somebody whose thinking I generally respect, but it was a mistake that I actually hear many people make with regards to religion and faith and knowledge and truth. And the point of view that was being advanced is that the question of truth is not really that important when it comes to religion, because what religion is not so much a matter of truth, but a matter of faith. And if another way of putting this line is that if this is just something the religious claims could be proved, is a way of people put it, if they could be proved, then where is room for faith? Now, of course, I think you can see in this equation that knowledge and faith are at the opposite ends of the spectrum here. Things that you prove are things that you can know. You can't know them unless you prove them. They're over here on one side. And then other things you just simply believe. Some things you know, other things you simply believe. This is the things that you have faith in. These are the things that can't be proved, and you exercise faith to apprehend them. They are unrelated to knowledge, and if unrelated to knowledge, then therefore unrelated to truth. You don't ask the question about whether they're true or not. You ask the question, it really amounts to whether you believe it or not. Now, first observation about this way of approaching it is that this is actually a secular view of the faith religion project. This is a secular view. It is a view that many devoutly religious people have, but I just want you to know that it's a secular view. It's the same view the secularists have. That when it comes to religion, we're not talking about knowledge, we're not talking about truth. Those are irrelevant categories to the issue. What we're talking about is faith and belief. And here they put the word belief and faith in the same category. That there are some things you know and other things you believe, though you don't know them. And these are just leaps, essentially, unrelated to evidence. That's the secular view. Now, the confusion here, I think, abounds principally because of confusion on the meaning of the important words in this discussion. Words like belief and truth and faith and knowledge. These words need to be clarified. And though we've talked about this on the show in the past, it seems like I address this with some frequency because of the confusion even in the church. At the same time, review is in order. And the repetition is the mother of learning, I guess, or something like that. So let's just go over these words. And I want you to make a mental note of the distinctions between these four words, belief, truth, faith, and knowledge, that are in play in this conversation. All right? And then when we get the definitions clearly before us, then we'll revisit this other question. And the word that actually is the one that is most misunderstood, I think, is the word belief. Because the word belief is the one most associated with religious enterprise. And when it's associated with religious enterprise, it is considered by definition to be something that is disconnected from knowledge. There are things you know, and there are other things you just simply believe. And this, I think, is the root of the problem. Because there's a very clear definition of belief in philosophical circles. And when I say philosophical circles, I don't mean that only philosophers believe that belief means what I'm going to offer you. It's just that philosophers, people in philosophical circles, they're more clear on this and more intentional about their understanding. But even you, the rank and file, Anybody outside of those circles understand these things as well, but they are not thinking clearly about those meanings. This will be evident in just a moment when I explain it. What is belief? Here it is. A belief is a mental activity. This is something that goes on in your mind, all right? It's a mental activity in which one holds that a thing is so. It's a mental activity, a holding that a thing is so. Now, if that sounds complicated, it's not. It's easy. Okay? I believe I'm talking here on the radio show. I believe that it is the case. It is my conviction that it is the case, that this is actually happening. Now, it's possible for my belief to be false. One can be mistaken about his belief, but a belief is a point of view about reality. So in that sense, all beliefs are implicit truth claims. They are implicit statements about the way reality is. Now, whether or not one's belief is true is a different matter. We'll get to that in a moment. But all beliefs are a holding that something is a certain way. And this is not restricted to religious convictions. Every scientific notion entails belief. Now, some of you are uneasy with that because you're saying, no, that's not belief, that's fact. Well, it may or may not be fact, but that doesn't obviate belief from the equation. It doesn't mean that belief isn't part of it. If you hold that gravity exists, you are believing in gravity. Your belief may be true, but it's a belief nonetheless. Every single attitude you have about what the world is like entails a belief. That's what the word means. It isn't just restricted to religion. All attitudes regarding fact entail beliefs, period. Even atheists, they are thick with beliefs. Doesn't mean they have religion. It means they have beliefs. They have an attitude or a mental perspective regarding the way the world actually is. A belief is a mental activity in which one holds that a thing is so. And so therefore all beliefs entail implicit truth claims. Now, but are the beliefs actually true? Well, this depends on what you mean by true. A belief is a thinking that something is so. If the thinking is correct and the world is the way you think it is or the way you believe it to be, then your belief is true. Truth is when your beliefs about the world are accurate. It's all there is to it. It's not complicated. And in fact, you know this. You know the definition of belief and truth because you use these notions all the time. Now, sometimes we use the word belief to emphasize our uncertainty. Well, the bus is coming at 8. That's what you said, right? Well, I believe so. So when you say I believe so, you always believed it. But now you're qualifying it a little bit and you're kind of emphasizing, I believe it, but I'm not certain. I think so, but I could be wrong. Okay, so you're emphasizing your uncertainty a little bit when you use the word belief there, but still you're holding that a thing is true. And if your belief is accurate, then it's true. If it matches the way the world actually is, then it's considered true. Now what is faith then? If every understanding of the way the world is entails a belief, then how do you distinguish belief from faith? Very simple. Faith is an act of trust based on what you believe is true. Faith is an act of trust based on what you believe is true. I'll give you a very simple example, though examples abound. Yesterday, I got on a shuttle at Vail and went to the city of Eagle to board an airplane that took me to Denver and then board another airplane that took me to LAX. Now, before I began my journey, I believed, that is, I held to be true, that these airplanes would function a certain way mechanically, would be able to accomplish certain tasks, that is, get me to my destination, according to a certain published schedule. I believed that all of those things were true. But I did not exercise faith in that belief or those beliefs until I got on the airplane. Now, do you see the difference between thinking that it's the case and then entrusting myself to it? Of course you do. It's very simple. Faith is an act of trust based upon beliefs. And if it's a wise, intelligent faith, it's based on beliefs that are true, demonstrable, well evidenced. If you just get in a rickety-rackety thing with some kind of propeller on it and wound up by rubber bands or run by gophers or whatever and expect to get to your destination, well, that's an act of faith, but it's a blind faith. It's a foolish faith. In either case, there is faith being exercised. Now, notice I'm using the word faith here in a way that isn't necessarily religious, and that's true because the object of faith here is not a religious thing. It's getting on an airplane, but still, the kind of faith that I'm talking about, which is trust in action, is evidenced in these non-religious commitments and actions and behaviors. All right, so we have a belief that when put into action is an example of trust that is faith. And if the belief is true, then the faith is well justified. The last word is knowledge, and knowledge is a very simple concept. Knowledge is accurate beliefs that are adequately justified. Accurate beliefs. Notice that all knowledge entails belief. All knowledge entails belief. You believe something is so, and your belief is accurate, and you have good reasons to believe that. You didn't just make a wild guess and get lucky. You have good reasons to believe it. That's knowledge. Now back to our religious question issue. Does truth matter when it comes to religious questions? Yes, of course it matters. Think of Judaism. Do you think it mattered whether or not to the foundations of Judaism, whether God actually called Abraham in Genesis chapter 12? If God did not actually in history call Abraham, can you see how that would undermine the Jewish religion as an historic religion? What about Moses? If there was no Moses, or Moses didn't receive the Ten Commandments, or better yet, if Moses did not deliver the nation of Israel from the Pharaoh, you have this great act of salvation that happened in history. If that didn't happen, can't you see that historic Judaism is being undermined? Sure. Now, you could say, well, look, I can still have my moral commitments as a Jew, even if I don't believe any of those things happened. And my response is, well, you would have that. You'd have your morality intact, but you wouldn't have your religion intact, because Judaism isn't based on a morality. It's based on God intervening in history, giving a morality, but the morality isn't the core of it. It's God's intervention in history to rescue Israel, his people that he used for a larger rescue of the world through his Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth. You see how the truth matters there? Paul says when it comes to the resurrection, if Christ did not rise from the dead, you ought to pity Christians. The truth mattered there too. Now, it might be some will say, well, all the theological details aren't what matters. What matters is God's real and he gave his law, and morality is real and we have to live by good ethics. Well, the truth matters there then, doesn't it? That is a truth that matters. So ultimately, truth does matter. Now, whether you're certain of the truth that matters, whether it is well justified, that's an entirely different matter. Yes, we have beliefs about spiritual things. It is critical whether or not those beliefs are true. If we are not sure about the truthfulness of the beliefs, we can still move out and exercise trust, even in our uncertainty. You might look at the frozen lake and say, I don't know if that's thick ice or thin ice. I don't know. I might fall through, but I'm going to go out on that lake, out on that ice. So you inch yourself out on that ice, and maybe you have timid faith, but you are still committed and you inch yourself out. But the fact may be that it's thick ice. And even though you don't have knowledge, you don't have good justification, still the ice is thick. And so it is true that the ice will hold you even if you're timid in exercising your faith. By the same token, when it comes to spiritual things, the truth matters. Boy, does it. Faith is an act of trust in what you believe is actually so. Probably the more evidence that you have that what you believe is actually true, the more confident your faith will be. And sometimes we do our best with what we have, and we take our step of trust, not certain whether the ice is thick or not. But those are distinctions, those words that are really important to keep in mind. Belief, a mental activity which one holds a thing is so. Truth is if you're right, if your beliefs match the way the world is. Faith is an act of trust based on what you believe. And knowledge is accurate beliefs that are adequately justified. Faith is not just for religion. And faith and knowledge are not contrary to each other. And truth does matter. There you go. All right. Questions, comments, calls in just a moment here on Stand to Reason.
According to recent statistics, 1 out of every 4 college